This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so we're going to talk about two types of antecedents. In the previous lesson, we talked about antecedents specifically. Now we're going to talk about discriminative stimuli, which is SD. Motivating operations will be the next video, but this is just to emphasize that these are the two types of antecedents. What is a discriminative stimulus? So it is a specific antecedent stimulus that has stimulus control over a particular behavior. A discriminative stimulus, or SD, signals the availability of reinforcement. What is stimulus control? Stimulus control describes an antecedent stimulus reliably exerts control over a response. Basically, what that means is that when you have a certain signal in the environment, that signal itself is going to signal that there is possibility to receive some type of reinforcement. Okay. An antecedent stimulus develops stimulus control when a target response is reinforced enough in the past when a particular stimulus is present than when it is not present. So we have a situation where in the presence of that particular signal, there is reinforcement available versus when it's not around or that particular signal is not in the environment, there is no, or there's less likelihood for reinforcement. That particular stimulus then becomes a discriminative stimulus due to the history, once again, of that particular, condition where you see that the more you're able to come in contact with that signal, you get reinforcement, then there's a history there, learning history. Let's summarize. So discriminative stimulus signals for the availability of reinforcement. That's a really, key point there. Antecedent stimulus becomes a discriminative stimulus when the target response contacts enough reinforcement in the presence of it. When an antecedent stimulus exerts control over response, we say antecedent stimulus has stimulus control over the response. Here's an example. A child frequently engages in tantrum during homework when mother is present but not the therapist. So in the presence of the mother, there's more likelihood that the client is going to engage in the problem behavior. The second example, well, actually, this is the same example here because every time when the child has a tantrum, mother will give him a break, but not the therapist. And that sometimes happens. Parents feel bad for their kids when they're having these tantrums, but nonetheless, it's actually going to do more harm long term because you're not going to be able to navigate through the problem behavior. Mother's presence has become the discriminative stimulus for the child to engage in the tantrum. Here's another one. So a water fountain signals that water is available. Why? Because you have gotten water from it in the past. In the presence of the water fountain, you're more likely to engage in certain responses that have resulted in water in the past than you are to do those responses when the fountain is absent. More examples. So the light switch signals for light. In this case, Dr. Davila signals for a fun RBT course. ABA therapy signals for praises and fun activities. The mother signals for attention, and the wife signals for delicious food. Next, we will have your knowledge checks.